Hello, I'm Marc Tex Wilson. I'm here today in the machine shop at Jamestown Community College, which is located in the Olean, New York campus. This video will feature the threading process that will be performed on a rough piece of stock that was turned down to a diameter of roughly 495 thousandths of an inch in the last video. Once completed, it will receive a standard 1/2 inch 13 bolt. So let's get back to work and finish the job.
The first thing that will need to be done is to cut a chamfer on the end of the workpiece. This high-speed steel cutting tool will have to suffice since it's the only profiling tool readily available. Now the tool holder will be locked onto the quick change tool post. The spindle will now be started with forward rotation. Ideally, a 45-degree chamfer is desired, but this cutting tool is only about 30 degrees, which will make a 60-degree cut on the nose of the part. The chamfer will make it easier to start a nut on it once screwed on to the finished thread. The cross-feed hand wheel is slowly being fed manually to reduce the diameter without bending or breaking the workpiece. The RPM could have been turned up a little higher. This parting tool is designed to completely cut through a bar of stock. It will be used to make a relief cut on the end of the bolt to allow the threading tool that will be used later to escape the threads without damaging the part. The elevation on these cutting tools has been preset in advance to the center height of the part. The RPM has been set to 125, which will also be used to do the actual threading as well. The expected thread depth will be about 94 thousandths of an inch, so a cut will be made around 100 thousandths of an inch deep. I don't want to go any deeper than is absolutely necessary to avoid weakening the workpiece and breaking it off in the actual threading process. Now the relief will be made just a little bit wider. A couple of passes will be made back and forth just to even out the relief a little bit and produce a smoother finish. A single point threader will now be used to cut the threads. There are actually 3 points on this cutting tool. Only the outermost tip cuts. Once dull or broken, the tip is manually indexed to a fresh new tip. The cutting tips are actually 60-degree angles, but the nose of the tool tip is vertically 90 degrees, so the tool shank has a negative back rake angle to ensure minimal contact with the workpiece. There will be 13 threads per inch. According to the information provided here, the gears will have to be set to C7TY. This is just a double check just to make sure that all the gear settings are locked in properly. Now the tool must be touched off to establish an X0 point. Remember, the X is the diameter of the part. The cross-feed hand wheel will slowly and carefully be manually fed in until the cutting tool barely makes contact with the workpiece. We just barely want to scratch the surface of the part with it. Without retracting the tool away from the part, the micrometer collar on the compound rest must be set to 0. The compound rest will be used to control the depth of the cut. X on the XZ panel will also be set to 0. The crossfeed hand wheel will manually be repositioned to X0 before every cutting pass. The micrometer collar for the manual crossfeed hand wheel can also be reset to 0. The digital XZ display will be used to 0x after each cutting pass, but this will also return to 0 by default. This angle gauge will be used to double check that the tool nose is properly positioned perpendicular to the workpiece before starting the threading process. The hand wheels will manually need to be manipulated, but if the tooltip fits nicely into the wedge, we're good to go. Once the spindle is activated, the numbered dial above the clutch lever should be turning. The numbered table above it tells which numbers correspond to the proper number of threads per inch. In this case, 1, 3, 5, and 7 can be used for 13 threads per inch when engaging the half nut lever. Right now, the surface of the part is being scratched from X0. Before continuing, a thread pitch gauge will be used to check that we actually have started a 13 thread per inch cut. The teeth of the gauge fit nicely, so we are finally almost ready for the main event. Before cutting the threads, a minute or two will be needed to bore you with some technical jargon that will be important to know. On line number 1, the threading constant of 0.61343 is shown. This number is standard for all threads. On line number 2, 13 threads per inch is the size of the threads being cut. On line number 3, the threading constant is divided by the threads per inch to give us the thread depth. On line number 4, the actual diameter of material being removed from the bolt is determined. And finally, on line number 5, the minor diameter of the threads is determined. This will be the diameter of the bolt at the root of the threads. So why was all that seemingly useless information necessary? It will be needed to determine how deep to cut the threads using the compound rest. This right triangle will illustrate. Side A is the actual finished 472 10,000ths of an inch depth of the threads. C is the actual tool movement from the compound rest where the cuts are being controlled. As you can see, side C is longer than side A. Using some basic trigonometry, the micrometer collar of the compound rest should read around 54 thousandths of an inch once the threads are completed. We'll start out with a cut of 10 thousandths of an inch by adjusting the compound rest micrometer collar. And now I'm waiting for any odd number to line up with the indicator before activating the half nut lever. Once the nut is activated, it's better to leave the right hand on it and stay ready to shut it off as soon as the threading tool reaches the relief cut. As the cut is being made, I keep thinking lefty-loosey as a reminder to turn the cross-slide hand wheel left to retract the tool away from the threads. One full turn of the crossfeed hand wheel equals 200 thousandths of an inch. That should be more than ample to retract the tool away from the threads to use the apron hand wheel to manually return the tool to its proper Z starting position. But I went a little further. X was just reset to 0, and the compound rest was reset to remove another 10 thousandths of an inch. Now the same process will be repeated. Unlike the X coordinate on the digital XZ display panel, which displays the diameter of the part, the crossfeed and compound rest micrometer collars indicate how much material is taken off of the radius. So the actual adjustment of 10 thousandths of an inch is really 20 thousandths of an inch taken off of the diameter. The XZ panel is being used to reset the crossfeed to its proper X0 starting position, but really, only the crossfeed micrometer collar should be needed to do this. One full turn away from 0 to 0 means one full turn back in from 0 to 0, and the crossfeed will be back at its proper X0 starting position. Another micrometer adjustment of 10 thousandths of an inch was made before this third cutting pass. As a rookie, I was unaware that 20 thousandths of an inch would be cut off the actual part diameter. I thought that it was only going to be the 10 thousandths of an inch indicated on the compound rest micrometer collar. That's what the classroom is for. Something valuable and practical has just been learned. And now the threads will be checked using a thread pitch gauge just to satisfy curiosity. It looks pretty good so far. As the cross slide is being reset to its proper position, the 0 was passed a couple of times, so it was slightly retracted each time and fed back into 0 to eliminate any backlash. And now the compound rest will be adjusted in another 5/1000ths of an inch. The Z0 isn't actually being used to reposition the threading tool before each new cutting pass. Since the half nut will engage the lead screw in exactly the same place every time, using the Z0 is not necessary. Once the threads are almost completely formed, it's always beneficial to have a nut readily available that will properly mate with the threads being cut to test them out. The nut isn't going to fit, so the threads aren't cut deep enough yet. Another important thing that should have been mentioned earlier is that once the half nut is locked in with the lead screw, they are synchronized. The higher the RPM, the faster the tool will cut. By using a slower RPM, there's less time needed to react when disengaging the half nut. The odds of panicking and making a mistake out of haste are greatly reduced. The thread is almost complete. One more pass should do it. Ideally, the initial cutting passes are greater in depth, but should become progressively smaller as the threads are nearing completion. The knowledge and experience gained making these threads will certainly be beneficial the next time. And there it is. It fits nicely and even before any deburring is performed. And here's a final look at the compound rest micrometer collar. If factoring in a few thousandths of an inch that were lost while touching off the tool to establish X0, the math was fairly accurate. And here's the final look at the part after parting it off and deburring it. I don't know if it's class 1, 2, or 3 fit, but it came out alright for a first successful attempt. The next time will certainly be much improved.
You have just seen how threads are cut on a manual engine lathe. It would be nice to be able to do some manual milling videos as well, but there just isn't enough time left to work with in this semester. I'd like to thank the staff here at JCC for the use of this facility and for the knowledge that has been gained. I'm Marc Tex Wilson. Thanks for watching.